What's up, everybody? We are here for my NFL Week 4 predictions. It's currently midnight on Sunday morning, so we have football starting in 12 hours. I did not get time to film my predictions. Well, I did earlier, but I was watching some great college football games. I mean, the first game I watched, Kentucky and Ole Miss, fantastic game. And then we obviously had Georgia and Bama. Fantastic game there. But today, I am going to predict the NFL Week 4. Before I get started, please make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, comment down below what is your predictions for the NFL Week 4. I want to know all that and more down below. With that said, here's my quick short on my Thursday night predictions. Alright, I just took a break at work to predict Thursday Night Football, New York Giants, Dallas Cowboys, and I gotta be quick about it because I am on break at Subway, and it has been crazy. I'm here to grab my earbuds so I can listen to the game while I am working. But New York, they're obviously the Giants. They're not very good, but they did kind of smoke the Cleveland Browns last week. They had a fantastic game. Like, Neighbors was great. So many other people were great. In that game, the Giants actually looked quite good. Dallas, last 2 weeks, have looked absolutely horrendous. They got killed against the New Orleans Saints. They could not beat the Baltimore Ravens. They've just not looked good at all. And originally, I thought this would be a blowout for the Dallas Cowboys, but actually, I'm going to predict the New York Giants win this one. This is going to be my upset of the week. I'm predicting New York Giants beat the Dallas Cowboys. All right, and we're back, and let's get started here with New Orleans versus Atlanta because we're already 0 for 1 on the week. I'm going to choose New Orleans to win this game. They had a fantastic first 2 weeks. Their offense was stellar, but that last week was a rough game against Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a team that is very strong. They are a very good team overall, and I do think that they're going to have a solid season. Philadelphia is. But New Orleans, even though some New Orleans Saints fans keep saying it to me that they're just going to start sucking later on this year, I still feel like they can be very solid. They have a very solid offense. Derek Carr, can be potential chance for a breakout year. Rashid Shaheed, even though he got me 0 points in fantasy football last week, he had a solid first 2 games. Actually, more than solid first 2 games. Alvin Kamara is going beast mode so far this season, so I do believe that they're going to have a couple more really great weeks. Overall, I think they're going to be a solid team and clinch a wild card spot this season. Atlanta lost against Kansas City. They had a game-winning drive against Philadelphia. They almost had a game-winning drive against Kansas City last week. Don't give me the bullcrap calls on the refs because Atlanta got several calls in their favor in that last drive. That's besides the point. But I don't know. Constantly, I want to say that they might win, but every game they have just trailed the whole game and all of a sudden got one game-winning drive. I don't think that's going to happen this week. I'm going with the New Orleans Saints to take this one. Then we got the 0-3, heck yes, Cincinnati Bengals. I love that they're 0-3. I hate the Bengals, but they played the 1-2 Carolina Panthers. Every bone in my body wants to say Carolina wins this game. Every single bone in my body wants to say Carolina wins this game. I can't. I can't say Carolina wins this game. Plus, I already picked my upset of the week with the Dallas Cowboy game, which I got wrong. Every bone in my body wants to say Carolina. I gotta go Cincinnati. We cannot ride the hype after one good week for the Carolina Panthers. I don't think that they're going to be doing any good the rest of the year just because they beat the Raiders in pretty big fashion. If they beat Cincinnati, which I will be rooting for them to do, I will be really surprised at Andy Dalton and what he's doing. But Cincinnati have not looked good. They looked good against Kansas City, but did not look good. They looked solid, I guess, against Washington. They had a couple solid plays, but their defense really hasn't been looking good all season. So this is going to be a step-up game. This can be a game that forges them into motion, but I think that they have a chance to even skip out on the playoffs this year. I'm just not really impressed with at all what they're doing so far this year. So I'm going to choose Cincinnati to win this one, but if they lose this one, all hope is lost, I think, for the Cincinnati Bengals this season. Los Angeles Rams versus the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears have not been having the greatest season so far. Caleb Williams hasn't been having a breakout year like everybody thought he was going to be. The Rams, they're in hell. I mean, there's no avoiding it. Kupp's injured. Nakua's injured. A lot of their defense is injured. They got a miracle win last week against San Francisco, which is crazy. But I do think that they can break even this week and beat the Chicago Bears. They haven't been having a great season. Their defense is really the only thing that's been working for them. Their offense really hasn't done much. Just haven't really been impressed by their style of play at all. And until they prove me different, I'm not going to predict them to win. And even though the Rams did have a good week last week, they barely have any wide receivers. I do think that they can still get the dub here against the Chicago Bears. Minnesota at Green Bay. Minnesota has had a fantastic season thus far. They're 3-0, have looked like the best team in football, and I do know that their hype's going to die down eventually. I do know that it's going to be a Josh Jobs situation where we're going to think they're going to make the playoffs, blah, 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 and then they're going to eventually start sucking. But until I see that they do, I'm going to predict them in every game they play. I do predict that they are going to play Green Bay. Now, the news did come out today that Jordan Love will be back. Jordan Love will be playing this game. But he didn't look too hot against Philadelphia. Malik Willis has been looking really great. But Jordan Love coming back first game after an injury and playing this fantastic Minnesota Vikings defense, I really cannot help but choose Minnesota to win this one. Even though their offense has been fantastic, their defense has been great, everything about them has been great. I'm not sure how Jordan Love will come back to play, so I don't even know if this can be like a real close game. I'm very excited to see this game. It's a rivalry between the two teams. I do think that Minnesota will take the dub here. 0-3 Jacksonville Jaguars versus the 2-1 Houston Texans. Houston did lose big time against the Minnesota Vikings. No surprise there. Minnesota is elite. But the Jacksonville Jaguars have looked terrible. They almost beat Miami, and they allowed the Dolphins to come from behind. Can't even remember who they played week 2, but I do know they lost in that game. Week 3, they sucked against Buffalo. And Buffalo, again, the best team in the NFL right now. But you can't hide the fact that they have absolutely sucked last week. Houston, again, did not look good at all last week, but their first 2 weeks, they looked solid. This is a no-brainer. I'm predicting Houston to win this game. The Houston Texans have a top 5 wide receiver core in Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Dell has not really done anything this year, but I do predict that he's going to start to break out of his shell here. I don't know if Mixon's going to be back. I think Mixon is out. But if he does come back, that'll be another weapon for the Houston Texans to utilize. Jacksonville just doesn't have anybody. Travis Etienne has not looked good this year. Trevor Lawrence has looked awful this year. Their wide receiver core hasn't really been doing much. So until I see something turning around for Jacksonville, I'm not going to predict them to win a single game until I see something turning around. Houston is going to win this one. The Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Indianapolis Colts. This should be a good one. The Indianapolis Colts 1-2 finally got a dub last week, but they have not looked at all good. I really wanted them to look good so much. They haven't done anything to impress me all year. Anthony Richardson hasn't done anything to impress me all year. And for me, a Florida Gators fan, I'm rooting for the Colts in every game they play, unless it's against Kansas City, because I'm an Anthony Richardson fan. He was a great quarterback for my school. So, every bone in my body wants to pick them against Indianapolis. Pittsburgh is 3-0. They're undefeated. They haven't really had a real challenge, though. They played the Chargers, who I still don't think are too good. They played the Denver Broncos, who's the Denver Broncos. They played the Atlanta Falcons again, who their offense has not looked good at all. So they haven't really faced a real challenge. Don't think they're going to face too big challenge here. And again, until I can see a change from Indianapolis, it's going to be really hard for me to win their faith back. So I am going to pick the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this one. Speaking of the Denver Broncos, they're playing the New York Jets this week. Jets on a hot streak. Great week 2 win. Great week 3 win. They dominated the New England Patriots, who is the New England Patriots, so it doesn't really matter. But the Denver Broncos have looked less than great. They looked fantastic last week in a blowout win against Tampa Bay. I don't think that they're going to really live up to that hype, though. I still think that the New York Jets are going to win. I think that was just a little fluke. The Denver Broncos defense has looked good. I just haven't really seen anything out of Bo Nix that has really convinced me otherwise if he's going to be a great player or not. I constantly am thinking, oh, okay, is he going to be any good? Is he going to be any good? So he's just kind of like a coin toss every single week if he's going to be good or not. The New York Jets, they're on a hot streak. I haven't seen too much out of them that makes me say that they're going to be a super bad team this year, but I do think that Denver's got a chance. I do think that this is a 50-50 toss-up, but I'm going the New York Jets to win this one. Our last noon game, it's a rematch from the NFC wildcard, Philadelphia versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay was one of the best teams in the league, then they lost to the Denver Broncos in humiliating fashion. So it's hard to regain their faith back. Mike Evans not been as hot, but Chris Godwin has been great. Bucky Irving has been a nice breakout rookie running back. But they're also helmed by Rachaad White. Rachaad White's in there too. Everybody has bad weeks. I get that. I'm not going to have my faith go down on Tampa Bay. Philadelphia has not looked as good as they should be looking. They've had a rough week against New Orleans, who only off a game-winning drive won that game. They've had a loss against the Atlanta Falcons in week 2. They beat the Green Bay Packers. So yes, they are 2-1, but they haven't really done too much to impress me, while Tampa Bay just had one rough week. I don't think that means they're going to curse their season. I do think they'll come back to form here against Philadelphia, who is a team that, even though they're 2-1, I do see their struggles, and they are a struggling team. Starting off our 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, depending on what your time zone is, Washington versus Arizona. This is an easy one. I'm picking Washington to win this one. Washington is a sleeper team. They are doing so good this year. Jaden Daniels having a fantastic rookie career so far. Had a great game last week against Cincinnati. Had a great game week 1. Despite the loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they have looked great. Arizona looked pretty good as well. Their win against the Los Angeles Rams was a massive win. They didn't look absolutely terrible against the Detroit Lions. I do think that the Detroit Lions have had their struggles, but they did get the win last week. But anyways, Arizona, they've been utilizing Marvin Harrison Jr. these last 2 weeks. So I do think that this one could be close. But after how good the Washington Redskins or Commanders or whatever you want to call them have been these last 3 weeks, I do think that they're going to be a really big sleeper team, and I do think that they're going to get the dub here against the Arizona Cardinals. The New England Patriots versus the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers desperately in search of a win. Since week 1, they have not looked too hot with a loss in week 2. They lost last week to the Rams in a miracle comeback for the Rams. So they really need to break out here. And against a New England team that their offense did not work at all last week, they got a huge chance. They got a huge chance to take the win that I think right now, in this point in the season, is a crucial win. You're without McCaffrey. And I don't think McCaffrey's going to come back for a long time still. I think he has potential to miss the remainder of the season, which sucks for fantasy managers like me who got him in 2 leagues. Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Kyle Shanahan, for not telling us. Anywho, they're in desperate need of a win. If they win here, I think they'll be better off. And I do think that they're going to win here. I do predict them to win here. But I think this is a desperate win time for San Francisco 49ers. After that humiliating Week 3 performance by the New England Patriots offense, I just cannot predict them to win this one. I do hope that they start forming together. They were actually having a pretty solid first 2 weeks, but their Week 3 was absolutely awful. And I don't think they're going to come back. Cleveland Browns versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Las Vegas Raiders got humiliated against Carolina last week. They had a solid week 2 where they actually beat the flippin' Ravens, but I do think it's coaching decisions that are killing them. I don't think Gardner Minshew looks as good as he did on the Indianapolis Colts last year. I don't think that they're looking too hot, but neither are Cleveland. Cleveland lost to the New York Giants last week. Cleveland lost to the Dallas Cowboys. Both teams, New York Giants, they're fine enough. Daniel Jones isn't looking too bad. Malik Willis, but Malik Neighbors has been looking pretty solid. I think he's having a solid season so far, but still, they lost to them, and they haven't even been looking good. Their Week 2 win was not a clean Week 2 win. And Las Vegas, even though they lost against Carolina, they still get that win against the Baltimore Ravens, and that puts me a little more faith in their squad. I am going to predict the Las Vegas Raiders to beat the Cleveland Browns. I do think that this could be a toss-up, anyone's game. I don't think either of these teams are good or going to make the playoffs, but I am going to predict Las Vegas to win this one. Then we got the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers had a solid first 2 weeks where they beat the Raiders and then they beat the Carolina Panthers, 2 teams that aren't hard to beat at all, and people were getting a little too hyped over them. Jim Harbaugh's a good coach, whatever. Still hate Harbaugh. Get him out of there. I hate him. But they really haven't impressed, and they didn't even get positive yards at all in the second half last week against Pittsburgh. They were left off at negative yards. Meanwhile, Kansas City giving me a heart attack those first 3 games. It was a really rough game last week where I was screaming at my TV for most of the game. It was a really rough game. Week 2, not rough, but it was really close game. Really close game week 1. Comes into quite literally a toe. Got you there. But Kansas City, I do think that they're going to win this one. Chargers haven't really faced a challenge. They're without a couple of their key players. Justin Herbert will be in the lineup here. He will be playing, but against a Chiefs team that on their offense have looked solid. Patrick Mahomes has made some really bad decisions, but their offense has looked solid overall. And even though we lost Pacheco, Carson Steele is making a name for himself. Cue the woo, I'm going to make a name for myself Gambit scene, but he's making a name for himself here. So I do think that Kansas City is going to win this one. I do think it's going to be by a pretty big margin. I don't think this one could be as close, but I can see it being as close, but I don't really think it will be. Kansas City going 4-0, baby, I do believe. Buffalo versus Baltimore. This is Sunday night's game. I will not be watching. I will be at a concert, but I will come home, turn off my phone, keep my phone off, and watch the replay on NFL Plus. Try to avoid the score when I get home, so I'm not too spoiled. But anyways, Buffalo 3-0, fantastic. Josh Allen looking like the best quarterback that we've seen in a long, long time. James Cook, nice addition to this offense as well. Baltimore hasn't impressed me at all. They lost against Kansas City. They lost against the Raiders, which is a hard thing to do. And then they barely won against Dallas. They were dominating the whole game and almost threw the game away in the end here. So I think this has potential to be a good game, but it's another game for the Baltimore Ravens that I do think that they need to get a crucial win here and make a name for themselves. There are two teams here, San Francisco and Baltimore, that we thought had a huge chance of winning it all this year that just have not been proving themselves early on the season. I think that this is their opportunity to prove themselves, but against a tough matchup against the Buffalo Bills, who have been the best team in the NFL so far this year, I'm going to say Buffalo goes 4-0. Got another Monday doubleheader. First off, a terrible game of the Tennessee Titans and the Miami Dolphins. I'm probably not going to pay much attention to this game. I'm going to pay a lot of attention to Seattle and Detroit, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But Tennessee, Miami. Tennessee has been terrible. Cannot wait to see what Will Levis is going to make a meme of himself this year, or this week. But they just have not looked good whatsoever, like at all. The Miami Dolphins have looked awful as well. Like even the first week with Tua, they haven't looked good. Week 2, before Tua got injured, haven't looked good. Their offense sucked. And because Mike McDaniels, I don't know what he's doing, but hey, let's go ahead and give Devon Achane 11 touches. You heard me right. You don't have a quarterback. You're giving your star running back 11 touches? Okay, that's next level stupidity, Mike. I don't know what's going on there, but they're playing Tennessee. Terrible defense, terrible offense. Tennessee's awful. They're going to be the worst team in the NFL this year, and I'm all here for it because I hate the Tennessee Titans. I'm going Miami will win this game. Maybe if they actually use their decent players and not just their quarterback, who they're playing Skylar Thompson this week, I think, or they're playing somebody else. I don't even know. Their quarterback room sucks. I'm saying Miami wins this game, but I could not care less about this one. This is going to be the worst game this week. Then we got, finally, Seattle and Detroit. This is going to be a fantastic game. Seattle, 3-0 on the year, have looked solid. They have had some struggles here and there, but they've eventually found ways to get the win. Detroit, within those first 2 weeks, they haven't done much that really impressed me so far, but that third week, they have impressed me against Arizona. I do think they're going to impress me this week. They're utilizing Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're utilizing Jahmyr Gibbs. They're utilizing David Montgomery. They are looking solid after those first 2 weeks. So I do think that they're going to turn back into their natural form, playing the Seattle team that has struggled. And I do think Seattle's going to face their first loss this week against the Detroit Lions. What is your predictions for the NFL Week 4? Let me know that all down below in the comment section. I want to know all that down below. This is my second channel, More ZMC. Make sure you guys subscribe. And while you're at it, make sure you go check out my main channel, Zachary Movie Chat, trying to get to 300 by the end of the year. Going to have a summer movies tier list coming up. It's all filmed. I'm just working on the editing, and there's been a lot of editing difficulties. Thank you guys for clicking on this video. And with that said, subscribe, join the Nerd Army. Peace out.